So my name is Netta Jenkins. I focus on diversity, equity, inclusion, and anti-racism.
Hello and welcome to Obehi podcast. I'm your host, Obehi Ewanfo, and I strongly believe that everyone has a story to share. Now let's get started into this episode.
I have been doing this work from goodness. As long as I can remember, it all starts off with a story. Both of my parents came to the States from Liberia in the 80s and moved to a very small town, predominantly white town. And we experienced a tremendous amount of racism. My first direct example of that was at the age of 7 when I watched a white woman spit in my mother's face and say, "Blacks don't belong in my neighborhood." And I watched my mom stay silent, and I stayed silent. And we turned back around, we walked into the house. We didn't really unpack anything, but I remember at a very young age vowing to myself that I will never be silent again. Never be silent again. And coming from an African household, you kind of have 3 occupations that you can choose from. So you can either be a doctor, lawyer, or engineer. And
Very classic
pathway, right? So my father was buying me law books at a very young age, and he wanted me to be an attorney. My mother wanted me to be a cardiovascular surgeon. So she was buying me a whole bunch of biology books. And I wanted to be an activist, right? I wanted to fight and advocate for people. And so it was very interesting because I thought I was going to be on the attorney path for a very long time. I didn't end up going in that direction, but I have always advocated, spoke about injustices, spoke about the impacts of racism and what we need to do to begin to dismantle that. And I started that in middle school and high school and college. And even as an adult within the workplace, I saw all of the systemic gaps that exist. And I knew that, hey, this was something that I was going to sink my teeth into.
Thank you so much for that. That is very, very important. In fact, all the questions I wanted to ask you regarding your background, you already answered all of them. So I'm not going to ask you anything. We're just going to move straight on. That is very important. You see, some people, they see people do things, they don't understand why they do it. Yeah. So in this podcast, we try to take a step back so that we understand what is the motivation behind what you do. So with your explanation, that is very clear now. So you see, I contacted you after the shooting in Buffalo. So I wanted us to talk about the situation. Of course, after that, I interviewed a professor in the story. It's not ending because it hasn't ended. Of course, then we stated that another one was going to happen. In fact, it did happen. Another one again and again and again and again. So it's something that we shouldn't really keep quiet about because it affects us. Of course, it might not necessarily affect you that is watching us now, but it might affect somebody next to you. So for that reason, it's something that you really cannot simply say, well, as long as it doesn't affect me. Because if that is the way you are reasoning, the way that is going to affect you, it will directly affect you. Nobody is going to be there to also stand by you. That is why it is important that even though it hasn't touched you, it hasn't touched your skin yet, what we are talking about here is important because it touched human being. And all of us, we are the other human being. Because the one in front of you is one, but you are the one that is saying it. Anyway, so let's put it like this. What is the situation of race and racism in the United States today? Because now you are a full mature adult and you are doing this consciously.
Yeah, racism is something that many people within America are afraid to touch. And it's really, really unfortunate because there are so many people that stay silent to the inhumane acts that people from systemically overlooked populations face and have faced for many years. And I think Oftentimes when I talk about racism, what I see happening is there's a population of people that feel a high level of resentment because they see the inequities that still exist, they see the inaction, they see the things that are stated, they see the level of energy that's put forth on one topic as opposed to another topic, right? And to be very direct, as we start to talk about even the instance with those um, Black people that were murdered in the grocery store. There were many leaders within organizations that said nothing. Not even, how are my employees feeling? How is the Black population within my organization feeling right now? How can we support you, right? And then we see other things that come up, right? So like we see what's happening with Roe versus Wade, and the people that affects the most are going to be those that are women identifying of color, right? Those a part of the trans community as well. So we see the ripple effects, but I think the hardest part and where the resentment comes from is the inaction, the lack of action that many people, many American people are taking. And when you are not taking action, that just shows that it's not important to you, right? And I wrote a post about this. Oftentimes when people are silent, there's a voice in silence. If I'm talking to you and I'm telling you, hey, here's what happened to me, here's what's happening to the people within my community, and you say nothing, then that tells me you don't care, right? So there's a voice that comes, there's a cost that also comes with that level of silence. And then I think the other side that we're seeing is guilt. So we're seeing resentment with everything that has transpired and that continues to transpire. And then we're seeing a level of guilt from a population of people that are saying, but I didn't do this. Yeah, maybe like those that came before me did this. So like, what do I have to do with this? But the role that those people play, again, is the level of inaction that's taken. Even if you're not overtly contributing to racism, and I think there's the misconception that if you're only racist if you use the N-word. You're only racist if perhaps similar to the situation that I had shared, it was pretty overt and direct with a white woman spitting in my mother's face and saying blacks don't belong in my neighborhood. That person is racist. But if I'm silent, I'm not racist. That's a form of that. It's a form of inaction.
Thank you for that. You see, like I said before, it affects everyone. It's not. I think it was during the march of Martin Luther King that I think he was the one actually that said that if you are silent, then you are on the part of the oppressor. Yeah. You cannot be silent. You just cannot be. Mm-hmm. Because it's not, you cannot say you don't have the time to react. No, of course you do have the time to react. Make your voice heard. Which line are you? Which part are you? All right, now let's come back to the silent again, because that is where it all started. When you were still a little girl, no? You see the incident that happened to your mother. She was silent, and you were silent. The victims are silent. Those who are supposed to take action are silent. The question is, why are people really silent? Why do you think people are silent?
Yeah, well, I think there's a number of things. When I take a look back and I analyze the situation that both my mom and I were in, my mom was silent because she feared if she took action, let's say she even put that woman in her place by yelling at her or telling her to go do something with herself, right? She could have acted as if she was the victim. And due to the inequities that exist within our country, within America, she would have been looked at as the victim. And now that could have put my mom in a very vulnerable, even life-threatening situation, right? Because we see so many, especially Black people, being murdered, right? Off of even just running away out of fear, unarmed, right? And so, so there was a level of fear, I think, just from my mother thinking, oh my gosh, my life, and then I have my daughter next to me. How do I even react in this moment? And then I think the other layer is shock. The other layer is shock of, I can't believe, or almost in denial, I can't believe that this is actually happening. Maybe this is just a one-time thing. I'm just going to let this go. This won't happen again until it does happen again, right? So I think there's a mix between fear and there's a mix between shock. There's also a mix between anger, right? When you're in an incident, and I'm taking the example of my mother being spit on by this white woman, the level of anger and sorrow that comes up, all you can do in that moment as a human being is you almost close up. And that's a way of defending yourself. There's also the level of embarrassment, belittlement, and just being so overwhelmed with the type of treatment that one receives can then shut them down. And I think oftentimes when I'm looking at those from systemically overlooked populations, but specifically Black people, when we shut down, it's a compilation of those things. It's a compilation of fear. It's a compilation of shock. It's a compilation of anger. It's a compilation of exhaustion. I am tired, right? I'm not seeing this change shifting, so I'm tired. And that's how come, and I'm so happy that there are so many activists today that are fighting, of all races and ethnicities, that are fighting to see change, that will not be silent, because what they can do is speak up for those people that have been silenced for so long. And then I think there's the other side, of course, right? And when we start looking at the dynamic of the majority group, right? And predominantly white people, I think that silence, again, like I was saying before, that silence comes from guilt. That silence comes from embarrassment. That silence sometimes comes out of, well, how do I do this? What do I do? I want to get it right. What I tell people is, it's not about being perfect. Being anti-racist, fighting against racism and oppression, it's not about being perfect. It's not about getting it right. It's not about the accolades. It's about saying, I am going to take action at all costs, right? I'm going to take action within the workplace. I'm going to speak up. I'm going to talk about the policies, the inequities that exist. I'm going to advocate for those that need their careers propelled, that are held back. I'm going to advocate for inclusive succession planning, right? So these people are saying, no matter what, even if I were to lose my job, I am going to continue to uplift my voice and advocate and take action, because it is the right thing to do. Because these are human beings.
All right, the right thing to do. And I think that the right thing should always be right. And people should know what is right, no? When a policeman kneel on the neck of a human being who has no gun, and this policeman wait there on the neck of a human being until that human being dies, you don't want to tell me that that police officer do not know that what he is doing is wrong. He should have known. But why did he go ahead and do that all the same?
Yeah.
That
It's
is what is difficult to understand.
it's pure evil. It's pure evil. When we start to read back and look back at our history, Black people were counted as 3/5 of a person. So we weren't even seen as a full human being. And you can tell even through the way in which, uh, when we date back to history, how Black people were treated. And even till this day, you would think something would have changed. But there's a level of power. So people are afraid to give up their power, right? And it's evil. It's pure evil. There's no other way to explain it. It's a deep level of hate that person holds even within themselves, to hate someone simply because of the color of their skin, and to then kneel on their neck until they die. And I go back to power because he felt that because he held such a high level of power, because and he's feeling like he's a superior race, and he has seen as a white man, the inequities that exist and how Black people are treated, that he could actually kneel on a Black man and get away with it.
That is something also I found difficult to understand, no? In that you say you are superior. How do you demonstrate it? Is it by killing a weaker person? That doesn't really demonstrate that you are superior. Now, let's look at it this way. Do you think if two Black people get hold of a white person and they want to kill him, even with bare hands, that they cannot kill him?
Of course.
But does by killing him make the Black people superior? So I'm not able to understand how they can even justify that because I have a gun, I kill you, it means that I am superior to you. I don't even understand where that rationale is coming from. It doesn't really justify superiority.
Yeah. Well, I think where it comes from, when we start to look back at the power structure, it's think about it. If you're driving on a road and there are cops on the road, you drive on that road every day to get to work. There's a cop, but you can speed past that cop, and that cop never pulls you over. But they pull other people over, and those people go to jail. But that cop never pulls you over. You're gonna be prone to thinking, well, that's fine. I can always speed down this road and nothing will happen to me. That's what you call power. There's a level of power in knowing that you can do something and not see a consequence or even be impacted by it. So this evil human monster, I should say, evil monster, knew that, or felt compelled to think that because he held a level of position, because he held a level of power, and even it's a level of his whiteness playing into it as well, I can do what I want to do here, right? I can have a scene of people, Black people, or people of all races, because I know there were people standing around watching, and I can kneel on this man's neck. I don't even care if he's crying for his mother, and I can kill him in front of everyone, and I will be okay. I will suffer no consequence.
But that is even what I see to be a little bit more dangerous there. That it doesn't speak of a superior human being. It speaks of a man who is too insecure, who is afraid, who is everything except superior. Because let's look at it. You see, human being, we are not the first to come out from the species of life, no? Look at every other species that we are cohabiting in this world. The bears, the lions, the elephants, the zebras, all of them eat. Even the lion have to feed on another life to exist. But the lion don't just say, because I am the lion, then I go there to just kill and litter them on the road. Even the lion too can understand this. Why come human being cannot understand this? That you only kill because you want. Okay, now, if I am a police officer, my job is not to bring a dead body to the court.
Right.
That is not the duty.
Right.
I'm not doing my duty by that. My duty is to bring somebody who I suspect to be a criminal. It is the court that decides whether this person is a criminal or not. If that is the case, I must do everything to make sure I bring this criminal to the law court. Because if I bring a dead body, there is no place for dead body in the law court. We watch Law and Order. We see this police officer that operate very dutifully, very educated, highly intelligent. But what we see on the streets of the United States is completely different. When you were talking before, you did make mention of the fact related to what happened to your mother, no? That your mother could have taken an action. Maybe grip this woman, because if your mother has spat on somebody's face and say, go away from here, she will go to jail for that. Mm-hmm. Because the human society doesn't condone those kind of stupidity. Mm-hmm. Somebody did that to her. She didn't take action, because if she take action, according to you, and of course we know this, maybe she is going to be treated as the aggressor. Yeah. This is because of the system, the way the system is set up. Racially dangerous to a certain group of people. Why is it like it? Is it a mistake? They don't yet understand that it is not fair?
Yeah. Oh, they know. I'm sure they know, but when we date back to, and I always like to look back at history, right? We go back in time. It stems from a level of power and feeling superior. That's where it stems from. It's we are going to oppress, this population of people look different. We are going to oppress and will continue. I mean, like when we look back at history, we see it. And so now it plays out. And it's not that people don't see it. It's not that people don't know. They know very well. But they still continue. And that's how come there are, a number of activists, a number of leaders throughout time, dating back, right? It's funny because when I think about, Martin Luther King and amazing leaders that have been influential in the movement and passing things, bringing it to light. Oftentimes I hear those that identify as white say, well, Martin Luther King, it was all about peace. And Martin Luther King, he died for us and he just died. No. Martin Luther King was murdered. And he was simply murdered because he just wanted equity, right? He just wanted a level of fairness for Black people. So imagine advocating for just bare minimum human rights and being murdered for that. It stems back to no, we cannot create a shift in power. What's happening? When we start to look at, in about 10 years or so, 5 to 10 years or so, our population is going to be much more multicultural, right? That means power is then shifting. That's how come we see a lot of these laws that protect people now being tampered with, being overturned. It goes back to a level of power, it goes back to a level of superiority. No, this can't happen. But we see it happening. And I always say, with change is slow, but people are no longer, and I will say specifically Black people and those that are systemically oppressed are no longer staying silent. There's a level of strength that we all have as well. And we're saying we can no longer operate like this within our society. We can no longer operate like this from a legal perspective. We can no longer operate like this within the workplace. We can no longer operate like this within education, within our neighborhoods. And there is more action, there's more advocacy, there's more support groups so that you can recharge and continue to do this work.
Yeah, that's very important. It's
Yeah.
very, very important because now we can look at data, we can look at what has happened in the past 30 years, 50 years, 100 years. You see, before also you were say something that I hear a lot of people talk about, that they're tired. They are tired. I've seen some people leaving the United States, going to stay even in some other parts in the American continent, say, I just want to have peace.
Yeah.
I want my child to grow up and not have it to be, one thing is to be a criminal. For this, you are being treated as a criminal. Another thing is just be a normal human living in the society, and you will still be at the risk of being just be killed for nothing. Sometimes people get tired. Anyway, now looking at data, all the things that have been happening, what do you think is a strategy that people should adopt? I'm not saying we should go around now and start kneeling down. Oh, please help us. Please tell me, what are the strategies to be alive?
The strategy to be alive. I wish I had all the answers there. What I say is that more than ever, we need to come together as a people. More than ever, coming together and creating our tribe, our community, healing within our own communities as well, and really starting to rebuild with each other is going to be a critical point. Something that I'm really proud of to see is that there are many Black people that are creating businesses, that are employing each other, that are thinking to create new developments, new cities, right? How can we be a part of this? How can I bring you onto a project that I'm working on that'll help you drive within what you're doing? And so we're seeing a lot of community building amongst each other. And that's something that we've always yearned for and had, but was dismantled and was broken apart. So it's I think more than ever, leaning on each other as a force is going to be critical in creating the change that we want to see.
Now, within this area, within this ambit that you have opened up, can you explain to us what is it that you do? There can be maybe your business, your social engagement. Help us understand so that somebody can learn from you.
Yeah, so it's funny because I always joke around and I say I'm a true African. I have many jobs, right? But so I work full time for an organization in the technology industry, and I'm vice president of global inclusion. So what I'm doing is focusing on policies, processes, education for the organization to really make sure that we're creating an inclusive, equitable, diverse environment for every single person within that organization. And so I'm really proud of the organization that I'm a part of. I also have two companies. So I have a technology platform called Dipper. Dipper guides professionals of color to a better workplace, one review at a time. So oftentimes, we may experience inequities within these organizations, and we look for a new organization and we get ourselves back into the same thing. So what Dipper does is it'll actually guide each member to the best organizations. You'll be able to read reviews and see what the experience is like for other people that are systemically overlooked. And some of them are good, some of them are bad, and some of them are indifferent. So you'll get a full spectrum and perspective of the experience. Also, there are job opportunities listed there. And typically, if we're listing a job opportunity of an organization, they're an organization that we believe in, that is on the path of doing the work and being sustainable. And I don't say organizations are perfect, right? But organizations that are actually actively doing the work. And then I have a consulting business, and that focuses on diversity, equity, inclusion, and anti-racism. So I work with Fortune 500 companies. I work with startups as well. Again, to really identify and assess, hey, what are the gaps that exist? I think oftentimes what organizations like to do is they will poll, hey, how are our communities of color within our organization feeling? Or how are those that are systemically overlooked feeling? And I'm like, well, they're not feeling too happy, right? Like. Or I get some organizations that will say, well, Netta, we conducted a survey and 86% of our people say that we're an inclusive organization. And I'm like, okay, but how many people are from systemically overlooked populations, right? Like, is that a true determining factor of the full experience for all people? Or are you just looking at the majority of the demographic that you have within your organization? So oftentimes what I like to do is say, well, let's assess managers with direct reports. Let's assess the impact that they are making so far. Do they even know the impact that they're making? Are they even tasked or accountable for diversity, equity, inclusion initiatives or solutions? Or are they a part of the problem? How many people have left their teams due to the lack of psychological safety that they are creating within their teams? And oftentimes organizations don't know. So that is, the work that I'm proud to be doing. I'm also working on a project to create the most inclusive city in America, and that's called Tolosa. So we haven't had a new city in over 100 years. And so working with some amazing leaders to create this something beautiful. And what really ignites me about this project is it's not just about me. It's not just about the founding members that are going to be creating this new city. It's really about anyone that wants to be a part of an inclusive city. We want to listen to their voice and we want to build around them. So really excited for these projects.
Well, this last one is speaks out. So I want you to spend some more time there. Are you like trying to start a new city from scratch? What do you intend to bring in new people, build the infrastructure? Tell me more about that.
Yeah, everything. So again, the person that's leading this project is Mark Laurie. He sold his company Jet to Walmart, and he's a pretty prominent person in America and doing amazing things, a serial entrepreneur as well. But he is the one who is now investing in creating a new city in America from scratch. It will be the most sustainable city, the most eco-friendly city as well, environmentally friendly, with the latest technologies. It will be the most inclusive as well. We're right now focused on creating a plan to move in the first 50,000 people, and we want to make sure that it's diverse. So I think what's cool about this, and we're having a town hall. So the first town hall will be on Monday, July 25th. So I'll send you the link so that you can tune in and watch as well virtually, and anyone else that wants to. But I think what's cool about this project is, like I was saying before, we're really wanting to understand the people, and we're not focused on just one demographic, right? We're reaching out to various demographics of people. We're making sure that this information is also shared within various publications, right? So publications that focus on Black people, publications that focus on the Asian community, publications that focus on the LGBTQ community, and differently abled community. And so like all demographics, no matter what age you are or where you're from, but we're really looking to make sure that it's diverse, it's inclusive, it's a place that's safe, it's a place that will love you back. You know, many of us grew up in communities that we could not create, and had we had the chance to create, it would be very different. And I think,
It's lovely.
right? And I think what's beautiful about it is we're able to do that. So I'm excited to be a part of the project.
All right, so you are going to get a piece of land, and then you build the infrastructure, then you bring
Yep.
in the people.
Yep.
That is
That's
fantastic,
true,
no?
right? I know. It's exciting. I'm not gonna lie, it's definitely igniting. It's igniting, and I hope you join the virtual town hall. I'll send you the link.
I want to see what people are saying there, what the feeling are. All right. Now, you did make mention of the word diversity, inclusion, equity. So, how much are people prepared to not just listen to these words as the beauty, as how they might sound in their ear, but to really go to the ground and make it a reality in their life? I mean, look at the people around you in the US and looking at also the situation that we are seeing today.
Yeah. Um, I can't speak for everyone as much as I'd like to. But what I can say is that I have came across incredible people of all backgrounds that are really committed and dedicated to creating the impact, um, doing the actionable work, not being afraid to say what needs to be said as well. Um, okay with saying, I'm going to walk away from this organization if this does not change. And I've seen that. I've seen leaders in top positions do that and say, I'm walking away from this organization, and they will say it because of this particular reason. And that organization, it leaves them in a box reflecting on, oh crap, what happened? We need to get this work done. Um, and I think, a large part of this work is for people to self reflect. This work we can't begin to even do this work. I don't care who you are without self reflecting. I had to take a moment, even though I've been doing it from my childhood years after that incident. I had to take a moment to say, why am I doing this? Will I always do this no matter what? And what type of impact am I looking to create? When I started to answer those questions for myself, um, it has helped me in those moments of where I do feel tired at times, of where I do feel saddened by everything that's happening, to be reignited to propel in this work that I do. And so until we do that, and I tell, many people that identify as white, you have to self-reflect, and you have to also learn American history. What has happened? And I think a lot of the times it's very scary for people to reflect on because it comes with pain. It's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this happened, but it did. And we acknowledge it, and then we start putting action forth to dismantle it. So it can't be done without self-reflecting.
Yeah, it requires a lot of reflection. In fact, that is what history does too. The other day I was interviewed a professor of history, and then we decided to treat that argument that is a lot of people are beginning to talk about now, which is the critical race theory.
Uh-huh.
So let's talk about it. So he was saying that why people don't want to talk about it is because they don't want to feel the pain that have been caused in the past. But that pain is not an invention. It really did happen. If it really did happen, then we must talk about it. Because there is no way you can heal without first knowing what is even the injury that you are suffering from.
And I love what you said. Oftentimes the way that I break it down to people and they understand, think about if you got into an argument with your partner, you were upset because your partner did something that you didn't like. And you're trying to communicate that with your partner, and your partner's like, oh, whatever. I don't want to hear it right now. I don't care. You're going to be so upset. You're going to bring up that point over and over and over until you get your point across. And that's how we act. That's how we behave as humans. So my background is in behavioral psychology. So I'm really interested in human behavior and human interaction. And when I start to reflect on it that way, that's exactly how we behave. We will continue to feel a level of resentment, pain, when things aren't tackled. And I relate that back to if you're in a relationship or if you're dating or your partner, or your wife, your husband, whoever, right? And you can't get your point across and they don't want to acknowledge how they hurt you, that pain will always exist until they actually acknowledge and say, you know what? I hear you, I hurt you, and I am so sorry, and I'm willing and I'm committed.
Oh, that is a magical word. That is a
I'm,
magical word.
that's it. I'm willing and I'm committed to making that change. And then they actually commit to it and they take action. Without those steps, there's going to be, like I said in the beginning, a heavy load of resentment and a heavy load on the other side of guilt. And the guilt comes from knowingly knowing that you don't want to take the time to acknowledge what has happened.
I'm talking of this acknowledgement, knowing what happened. Uh, I believe there is an argument that we have talked about, me talking about us as a people, as a generation, as world. The transatlantic slave trade, for example, the horror, the genocide, the homicide, these have never really been examined. And I believe that there are consequences for those actions. For
Oh,
those millions of Africans that were humiliated, beaten to death, I don't know if we can hide that because coming from a behavioral understanding now, I don't think if we can just pretend it never happened.
no,
Is it possible?
no, it's not. It's not possible at all. It's the reason why we see even on LinkedIn, right? We see so many people advocating and saying what they need to say and posting about these things because there's a level of resentment. There's a level of resentment in not acknowledging what has happened. There's a level of resentment in not taking action and being okay with what has happened in the past still being perpetuated throughout time.
Mm.
That is one of the most demeaning things, one of the most hurtful things that we as Black people and those that have been systemically overlooked face every single day. That pain, even when we try to suppress it, it will always be there because of the lack of acknowledgement and the lack of inaction.
All right, looking at it from the point of view of psychology, of the functioning of the human brain,
Yeah.
because everything actually takes place there.
Yep.
Do you think there is something that we can do as a people to solve this problem? Which of course means to solve it, we first of all need to talk about it. What actually happened? Somebody is going to pay for it. That might be hard for somebody to understand, but it is the truth.
Mm-hmm.
For everything you take that is not yours, you are going to pay for it. You pay for it now, you pay for it 200,000 years to come. Nature is not going to permit it to get lost. Okay, looking at us where we are today, this is 2022. Do you think we can do anything to sort of get ourselves in the process of being healed?
I think the process of healing is, like I was saying before, is us coming together like a community and leaning on each other and really having conversations about, okay, who are those? How are we coming behind those leaders that want to be in the political realm? How are we supporting each other in that respect? Who are our activists? How are we supporting and putting the financial resources behind each other? How are we making sure that if we wanted to even start our own community, own city, what type of infrastructure are we putting in place? Who's really going to be kind of helping from a resource perspective, right? Because there are incredible Black people that are well off, that are doing really well, and some of them may feel like, oh, it's not my job. It's not my job to give back. But I think a part of giving back too does help to create and reestablish the healing that we need and the community that we need for each other. And so really rebuilding the things that we need and really looking at and honing into ourselves is going to be critical. So even in me saying with my partner, okay, let's create Dipper. Let's create a technology platform that guides those that are systemically overlooked to better workplaces, one review at a time, because we know that not every single human is going to be a business owner. Some people are just going to be working in corporate spaces and startups for other people, organizations. But how do we make sure that those people are only at organizations that are going to value them? Because those organizations are doing the work. It starts with us really starting to think about how do we reshift this level of power for ourselves.
All right, ourselves.
Yeah.
And the people. Now, I'm beginning to look at a group of people that you are speaking about now. My curiosity, actually, my question is, how do you gather the data? How do you manage to understand the feeling of the people? Is it that you help me understand that?
I can start off with Dipper. What we did, and I think any business should do, is we conducted assessments before we even started Dipper. We wanted to ensure that people were willing to share, especially those that identify as Black, those that identify as Hispanic, Latinx, Asian, Indigenous. We wanted to make sure that those people felt safe enough to share their reviews, right? Because oftentimes we know that there's already a lack of representation within organizations. What we found was that 87% of the people that were part of the assessment wanted to share their reviews because they wanted to not only be directed to the best places to work, but they wanted to guide other people. And that's what we talk, when I talk about community, that's what I'm talking about. People thinking about, okay, how does this help me? How does this benefit me, Netta? But how does it benefit my community around me? Because it's not just about me. How does it benefit down the line, even legacy for my 2-year-old now and my 3-year-old? From Telosa perspective, what they did was they conducted a poll. The poll was distributed through all social sites, through various demographics and communities to really make sure and poll, hey, do people want a new city that is going to be environmentally sustainable, is going to be diverse, is going to be inclusive? Do people want a city that's going to actually love them back? And what does that actually mean for these people? And so we did, right? And so they used a very prominent polling system, but they definitely did their due diligence in making sure that it was distributed to various communities and people had a chance to fill that out. And they're going to continue. They're not stopping, because this city isn't going to be built overnight. So it's going to definitely take a lot of time. But like I said, there's going to be consistent town halls. They're going to be consistently wanting to hear from people that are interested in being a part of a city that's going to be inclusive, and what that means for them. For some people, they're really focused on environmental sustainability. For some people, they're really focused on the diversity aspect. For some people, they're really focused on, I want to make sure that education is fair. I want to make sure that health, is fair. I want to make sure that we have top technology. So it's different for a variety of people, but all in all, people want to see the full scope of all of it. So polling is very, very important.
I have a curiosity. If you make all this investment, I want to believe that it's going to be very expensive with everything that you're going to put up to be able to put this city in place. At the end of the day, who is going to be able to come in? Is it on that maybe those who are well up in the society are those who are going to benefit from it, as against, okay, those who might need it but they don't have the money to be able to afford it? So in this sense, of course, we are still looking at the African American society, the people who have always been the victim of the system. I don't know if you can say anything about that.
Yeah, this is still in development, right? And it's a full team. So a full team of people that are working on it. But those are all the things that we're looking for, right? When we think about this city, it's really about co-creating. So this is not, oh, the leaders that are working on this project, we're just going to call all the shots. Yeah. That's what we've seen done in the past, and that doesn't always work out the best way. So truly, when I say that we welcome those voices, we're going to continue to engage with those from various communities and populations of people to really understand what are the inequities that exist. How do we make sure we create a city that's going to be inclusive of anyone, no matter who you are, no matter what financial bracket you're in? How do we make this city work for you? And this is not, everyone sitting at the table calling the shots. This is truly about when we what we were talking before about actively listening and honing into those voices, and people that want to really see an inclusive space.
I want you to spend some time talking about the economy, business, no, because I think this is one of the things that is not taught enough within our community because people are poor. Let me just put it like that. No, a lot of people do not have access to the economic power. For this, they are easily preyed upon uh, in the neighborhood. And so one of the solution, I think, and I think it'll be also the suggestion of many people, is to make sure that money flow into the community so that people can manage to take care of their needs. In this sense, they don't need much help from other persons if they can take care of their own. But of course, this is not we're not talking of maybe Father Christmas type of money now, even though sometimes it does happen like that. No, distribute that distribution it really doesn't solve the problem, but the idea, the knowledge, how to create income for yourself, how to set up businesses for yourself so you can take care of your need. I don't know the role you think that can play in the overall conversation that we're having today, which is the exploitation of the people in very many areas, of course.
Yeah, I think the biggest exploitation that we face is the inequity within education, right? Again, I hate to say it, we look back at history, there were things that we weren't exposed to. Um, and even as we started to come into our own, it was whitewashed, right? It was written in just one form. And that's one of the reasons why there are so many people that are battling critical race theory in schools. That's one of the reasons why they even created an act called the Woke Act for DEI leaders um, that are working with employees in Florida to not share about history and the inequities that exist, right? So education is pivotal. And I think that's something that I always try to hone in on. It's one of the reasons why I'm always posting on LinkedIn as well. It's one of the reasons why I'm always sharing information with my subscribers every Monday, because I believe in education. I believe the more that we know, the more we can then take action on. When we don't know, or when we turn the cheek, right, to things that we need to know, then we don't have that desire to really make the impact that we need to make. So yes, education is definitely really pivotal too. And even when we start to think about like the economics of it or the financial status for people, many people don't know even how to start a business. Many people don't know the certifications that they need, and how they can benefit off of the funds from the government, right? For those that are certified, minority business owners or women business enterprise owners. A lot of people don't know the access of funds that they can receive. And sometimes the system makes it so difficult to receive those funds as well. Those that are educated on how to go around that, those are educated on how to receive that, we see flourish. That information has to be free. Capitalism, I mean, we can talk about this all day. Capitalism is like a scary movie, right? Because many of us, it kind of has us in a box. Because even if we wanted to do the work for free, we can't because we have to live. So oftentimes when we think about education, and even for activists, we're selling the information because we have to put food on the table to feed our families, to feed ourselves. So capitalism is even a very tough thing. But I think, again, those that hold power, those that have the financial resources, being able to assess that and say, okay, here's how I got it. Here's the privilege that is a part of that. And here's how I'm going to utilize what I have to drive greater impact. And it doesn't mean, oh, I'm just going to give money away. I'm just donating money. No. It's how do I begin to build the infrastructure? How do I begin to think about putting my resources towards educating people for free, but still being able to sustain? People that have funds to do that can do that, right? And that's a level, that's an action that they can actually take to create a level of wealth for others, even if it's not, I'm going to give you this money. Well, show me.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. Show me the money.
You have access to information that I don't have. Show me. It's similar to when I talk to leaders, I say, venture capital, the amount of venture capital that women receive is 2.2%, just women in general. Now, when we talk about Black women, it's 2.2%. We talk about Hispanic, Latinx women, it's less than that. It's like 0.1%. Indigenous women, even less than that. So when we start looking at that, I also then look at what exposure and access do women, or definitely Black women, Hispanic, Latinx women, Indigenous women, have to these spaces so that they can even actually gain the venture capital that they need. How many people know not to just sell off equity because you're essentially just selling off of your business? When do you do it? See, people don't have that knowledge, and knowledge is power. So if people don't have that knowledge, they're in the same situation living paycheck to paycheck. Education is on the top of my list. It's always been. I'm blessed to be in a situation where, I have a 2-year-old and 3-year-old, and I'm able to send them to an incredible daycare where they're already learning different languages and everything, right? Like they're just way ahead of their time. But I'm blessed in that way. I know other people don't have the access to that. So my thinking is like, okay, well, with my children knowing this, how do I set up my children so that they can teach the same thing that they're learning to their friends that may not have the same access that they have? How do I make sure that I'm even learning from my kids so that I can then teach that for free to those that may not have it? Just the other day, I took my children to the park down the street, and there was a woman that came up to me, and her daughter is mixed, so half Black, half white, and so she has like coily, curly hair, and it was all matted up because she didn't know. She's a white woman. She didn't know the right products to put in her hair, so she kept on putting gel in her hair, and it got so matted up. And she said, I don't know what to do. I said, come to my house. Let me do your daughter's hair. Let me show you the products that you need to use. Again, education. It's free. Let me show you the products that you need to use in your daughter's hair to make sure that you don't mess up her hair. You don't have to cut her beautiful hair off, right? And the little girl identifies as Black. Even though she's mixed, she identifies as Black, right? And so I'm doing her hair. I'm taking the knots out of her hair. And you see the excitement that came to her face because her hair was now, it had the right products in it, right? For the texture of her hair. That's education. So I think oftentimes when we think about taking action, people think about it on a grand scale. It's like, no. What information that you know that you haven't exposed someone else to? Do they have to beg you for it? Are you just in your own bubble of those that are wealthy as well? Or are you exposing that information to other people?
Thank you so much for that. That is very, very important. In fact, it's at the center of what we do here.
Yeah.
All right, now let me just explain it to you in few seconds. This project actually is coming from a research into the presence of Africans in northern Italy. At the end of the research that took us a couple of years, what we find is that though a lot of people are complaining all the time of the systemic racism and all of that, what we in our analysis, there are a lot of people who are qualified in the community, who have got quality education maybe before they came from Africa, because we're looking at immigrant demography, African immigrant in this part of the world. So it was in reaction to that that we decided to create an e-learning platform, Aclasses.org, where we bring in knowledge that people can tap into and they do something for themselves. Because you don't really need, it's not everything that you need somebody to do for you. There are some things that you can do for yourself.
Yeah.
And like you're saying, it requires knowledge. You need to understand that there are certain things you need to do. If you don't do that, you're going to remain in your bubble. So I really thank you for sharing that. Now, that leads me to another important question, which is collaboration. Because like you also were saying before, within the diaspora African community, in this case, we can look at the United States, there are some people that are well off. They are very good in their area. Some of them are very technically perfect. Some of them have a lot of money. So in the helping each other, let's even cry on our shoulder if we have to. Let's help ourselves. How do you think we'll be able to collaborate? I'm not saying come and take your money and distribute it to people, but how can we share this knowledge among ourselves so that other people can rise from the dust?
I think it's just that. I think it's sharing knowledge. I think it's us talking about, and those people that do have the wealth and the riches and all of that, right? Being able to share, hey, here's how I failed. Here's what I learned from it. Here's what not to do. Here's the path that you should consider. Here are introductions that I can make. You know what I mean? Introductions that I can make. And when I make this introduction, you go ahead and you sell yourself. Sometimes all it is being exposed and having the access to just being in a room, right? Just having the access and being in a room can do wonders for someone's career. It can do wonders for someone's legacy. It can do wonders for the way in which they even behave. So providing that access, and I think that's a part of collaboration. It's saying, it may not be, oh, I'm going to collaborate with you to create a business. Maybe that person's not there and that's their personal opinion. But it could be, well, I'm at the stake to where I want to pay it forward. I've reached a certain level, so I want to connect you with these individuals. Oftentimes, I think the sad part for me is when I see those that have attained a level of wealth, they are on a level now and they're not thinking about, okay, well, let me at least provide this insight or exposure to my people. That part is always hard for me. And I get it. Not everyone wants to be in that role to have to give. But I do also feel if we're not a part of the process of giving to each other, then we're also a part of the problem too.
Now, I want to believe that you are not going to resolve all the problems in the world. No, it is not possible. Now, look at the community that you are working with, the people that you talk to. What are the challenges that actually face them that you would like to prefer solution to? Or you can say because like I said, you cannot solve all the problems in the world. But what are the main challenges facing the people that you are dealing with, the African diaspora community in this case?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, so I do a lot of work within the workplace. And oftentimes it's being microaggressed, being macroaggressed, being not listened to, being not invited in a room to even give their perspective, overlooked, not thought about in terms of their career progression, not thought about in becoming the next C-suite leader, not even considered. Um, Having to do extra work and be extra while their counterparts are just mediocre, um, and really just not seeing themselves propel in the way that they should be propelling and respected as well. And I think that that's one of the biggest things that I hear. And what I say to that is it's really important because oftentimes, working within these organizations, if someone has experienced something terrible or they're coming from a level of trauma, they leave to the next organization. They're bringing that trauma with them. And oftentimes, what happens, the human behavior side is when you have a level of trauma, you start to close up. You close up, you close up. And to the point where you don't want to communicate with anyone, you don't really trust, and you're just looking for when the next bad thing is going to happen, and that doesn't do anyone good. It's not igniting at all. And so oftentimes what I like to do is create what I'd like my career plan to be. And when whoever I'm reporting to, I share that with them. Hey, here's what I'm expecting here, but can we agree to this path? And then what I do is I send it in writing. So I'm very big on following up. I'm also very big on creating these relationships as well. In one of my former organizations, I'll say that it was a white man, the CEO, that was one of my biggest advocates. White man and a white woman. My manager and the CEO, one of my biggest advocates, to the point where my former manager, she's the one that said to me, Netta, she's like, you have something so special. You need to start your own company. I was like, really? I'm still working. She's like, start your own company. You continue to work. Then the CEO said, Netta, I'm going to invest. You're such a great speaker. I'm going to invest in a coach that'll help. Like those are people, when I talk about education, when I talk about exposure, right? Those are people that want the best for you. And that can come in all shades, right? And so, but a part of it too was for me to say, okay, I had trauma within my former organization, but now I'm in this organization. I got to give these people a chance.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I got to give these people a chance, and I got to build this relationship. And I remember when joining the company, I wasn't a senior level person, but I said I'm going to build a relationship with the CEO, even though I'm not reporting to him. At some point, I started to, but I'm going to build a relationship. And I saw how quickly my career propelled as well. So a large part of it too is us building relationships, us opening up, and letting people in.
That's great. Now, because we are looking at the concluding part of it, at the solution part of it, I'm trying to wonder if storytelling can have a role to play in the conversation that we are having today. Because looking at the community, looking at the trauma sometimes that we have, because of where we are coming from, if you see, if I don't know what kind of role you think storytelling can play here.
Yeah, I think storytelling plays a huge role. I'm big on storytelling. I think the way that I've been able to positively influence people to drive action when they didn't feel like they needed to do anything or didn't know what to do was through my story. It was through them just knowing, oh, okay, I like Netta. I care about Netta. And oh my gosh, Netta was impacted in that way. This is why Netta does this work. Okay, I got to do something because this is not right. it was through the power of my storytelling. So yeah, I definitely think it's storytelling is huge to connect with people, and even just to create and build that relationship, because then people start relating to you, or people don't relate at all and say, okay, I'm missing out on something. My childhood was not like that. I never experienced that. Therefore, I remember someone saying to me, like, Netta, I hold so much privilege that I never even knew I had. I never experienced that. You experienced that at the age of 7. Your mother had to experience that. This is what has you in this path. And I'm walking around here not doing anything. I never said anything. I never even advocated. And I thought by staying silent, I was doing something. It was that self-reflection from that person came out of the storytelling that I share.
Thank you for that. There are power in story. And of course, as Africa, we must understand it, that there is a power in the telling of our story.
Yeah.
All right, now, storytelling and also the proliferation of hateful idea is what usually drag people into the drama that we are seeing every day.
Mm-hmm.
It is hurting us. It is hurting us, all of us. So the question for you is, what do you think maybe can be done at the level of the society to limit this hateful idea? Because since you are working for a society that should be equal, where everybody should be treating each other with respect, you don't need to kneel down for me, but just treat me as a human being. How can we reduce that hateful ideology that is circulating?
Yeah. Well, I always like to start off with the workplace, because that's where I do most of my work. You get people from all walks of life in the workplace from various experiences. And I think it really starts off with accountability. Within the organization that I work in, what I did was I along with my team, we've created a DEI application that allows every single employee to add how they're driving impact. So we have things that they have to select from, and the technology will even ping them when they haven't put anything in. Also, the CEO, I've worked with the CEO, and he approved that the DEI application key performance indicators are going to be tied to every single person's performance. So, if you don't perform well, if you don't complete it, right, then it hits your bonus, it hits your pay, it hits the way in which you climb the ladder. And so that's all really, really important. And that's the work that we're doing. So I think a large part of this is accountability.
All right, thank you. So what would be your final statement here to conclude it?
Yeah, I think, the biggest thing here is that we can't stay silent. No one can stay silent, right? These things have to be brought up. And I think oftentimes they're going to be moments of frustration and exhaustion. And that's okay. When you are exhausted, take the time for yourself to just relax, to unwind, to breathe in and breathe out. But find your tribe. Find the people that are going to pour into you so that you can pour into them. Share as well. Share the things, share your knowledge, share what you know. That is really, really important for us to create the impact that we want to see for each other.
Thank you, dear Netta. I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you. Take care.
If you enjoy this podcast, make sure you subscribe so you never miss any of our future episodes. Rate and review Obehi podcast and share with your friends who might need it. I remain Obehi Ewafo. Thank you so much for listening, and talk to you in the next episode.